10 years. That is how long Jessica and I had been married when everything came crashing down. We met when I was 22, got married at 25, and built what I thought was an unshakable life together. I worked as a software engineer, she taught third grade, and we lived in a quiet neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. We had our little routines, our Friday evening walks, our Sunday morning pancakes. I trusted her with every fiber of my being. So when her best friend Diane showed up at our door with tear-stained cheeks and a suitcase full of heartbreak after her divorce, I did not hesitate to open our home. I had no idea that decision would destroy everything I held dear. Before I dive into what happened next, I would really appreciate it if you could let me know where you are watching from in the comments. And if this story resonates with you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you will want to hear how this nightmare unfolded and how I fought my way back. Now let me tell you about the night everything fell apart. Jessica and I had always been solid. We were not the couple that fought over little things or kept score. We communicated, we laughed, we supported each other through everything. When I lost my job 3 years into our marriage, she held me together. When her mother passed away 2 years later, I sat with her through every sleepless night. Our house was not fancy, just a 3-bedroom ranch-style home with a small backyard, but it was ours. We painted the walls together, planted tomatoes that never quite grew right, and hosted cookouts where our friends would stay until midnight talking about nothing important. I had met Diane a handful of times over the years. She was Jessica's college roommate, the kind of friend who showed up at 2 in the morning when you needed someone. They talked on the phone every week, shared inside jokes I never quite understood. Diane had married young too to a guy named Paul who worked in finance. They seemed happy enough from the outside, but Jessica would sometimes mention tension little cracks that hinted at something deeper. So when Jessica got that call on a Wednesday evening in late September, her face going pale as she listened, I already knew it was serious. She hung up and turned to me with worry etched across her features. Diane and Paul were done. Divorce papers filed, assets being divided, and Diane was living in a cramped studio apartment that smelled like mildew and regret. I did not think twice when Jessica asked if Diane could stay with us for a few weeks. Our guest room was just sitting there, and this was someone my wife loved like a sister. I said yes, immediately. Diane arrived that Saturday afternoon with 3 duffel bags and a hollow look in her eyes that made me feel genuinely sorry for her. She thanked us, quietly settled into the guest room, and for the first week, she mostly kept to herself. I would hear her crying some nights, soft sounds that drifted through the walls. But something shifted during the second week. Diane started emerging from her room more often, especially when Jessica was at work. At first, it was innocent enough. She would ask me about my day, comment on the weather, make small talk while pouring coffee. I appreciated that she seemed to be coming out of her shell, trying to move forward. Then the conversation started feeling different. She would stand just a little too close when we talked. Her hand would brush my arm when she laughed at something I said. She started wearing tank tops and shorts around the house instead of the sweats and oversized shirts from that first week. I told myself I was reading too much into it. She was going through a divorce, probably just seeking normal human interaction. But the uncomfortable feeling in my gut would not go away. One Thursday evening, Jessica had to stay late for parent-teacher conferences. She texted me around 6, saying she would not be home until 9 or so. I planned to heat up some leftovers and catch up on work emails. Diane had other plans. She made dinner some kind of pasta dish with garlic bread and insisted I join her. I tried to decline politely, said I had work to do, but she looked so hopeful that I felt like a jerk for refusing. So I sat down across from her at our kitchen table and we ate. The conversation started normally enough, but then she started asking questions that made my shoulders tense. Did I ever feel trapped in my marriage? Did I ever wonder what else was out there? Had Jessica and I grown apart without realizing it? I kept my answers short, deflecting, trying to steer us back to safer topics. But Diane kept pushing, kept probing, and finally I excused myself. I told her I really did need to finish some work, thanked her for dinner, and retreated to my home office. I closed the door and sat there feeling confused and frankly a little angry. This was not okay. That weekend I brought it up with Jessica as gently as I could. I said maybe it was time for Diane to start looking for her own place, that she seemed to be doing better. Jessica looked surprised, almost hurt. She reminded me that Diane was still fragile, still processing everything. Could we give it another week or two? I did not want to seem heartless, so I agreed. But I made a mental note to keep more distance. The following Tuesday changed everything. Jessica had a work trip, some education conference in a city about 2 hours away. She would be gone overnight, back Wednesday afternoon. I kissed her goodbye. Tuesday morning went to work. Came home to an empty house. I figured I would order pizza work on a coding project I had been putting off, maybe watch a game later. Around 9 that night, I was in my office, headphones on, deep into debugging some tricky code. I did not hear the knock at first. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder and nearly jumped out of my skin. I yanked off my headphones and spun around. Diane stood there, holding 2 glasses of red wine, wearing a smile that did not reach her eyes. She said she wanted to thank me properly for everything Jessica and I had done for her. I told her it was not necessary, that we were happy to help. I did not take the wine glass she offered. She set both glasses down on my desk, and her whole demeanor shifted. Her eyes filled with tears, and she started talking about Paul, about how he made her feel worthless, about how she had forgotten what it felt like to be wanted. I felt bad for her, I really did. I tried to offer comfort the only way I knew how, with words. I told her she deserved better, that she would find happiness again. She stepped closer. I took a step back. My office was not big, maybe 10 by 12 feet, and suddenly it felt suffocating. Then Diane closed the distance between us and wrapped her arms around me. I froze for a second, then put my hands on her shoulders to gently push her back. But she did not let go. She looked up at me, and I saw something in her expression that made my blood run cold. This was not grief. This was calculation. She tried to kiss me. I turned my head and shoved her away harder than I intended. She stumbled back a step but came at me again, her fingers clutching at my shirt. I grabbed her wrists and held her at arm's length. I said clearly, firmly, that this was not happening. That she needed to stop. That this was wrong on every level. I told her she had to leave our house first thing in the morning, that I would help her find a place, but she could not stay here anymore. For a moment, Diane just stared at me. Then, something shifted in her face. The desperation vanished, replaced by something cold and hard. She pulled her hands free, took 2 steps back, and smiled. Not a sad smile, not an embarrassed smile. Something cruel. She said, "You will regret this." Then she turned and walked out of my office. I stood there shaking, adrenaline coursing through me. What the hell just happened? I grabbed my phone and texted Jessica immediately. I told her what Diane had done, that she had tried to kiss me, that I had rejected her, and told her to leave. I needed Jessica to know before Diane could spin some story. Jessica called me within minutes. Her voice was tight with worry. I told her everything again, every detail. She was quiet for a long moment, then said she would come home early in the morning, that she would deal with Diane. I felt a wave of relief. Jessica believed me. Of course she did. We had 10 years of trust between us. I could not sleep that night. I stayed on the couch in the living room door, locked phone in my hand. Every sound made me jump. Around 6 in the morning, I heard screaming. I ran toward the sound and found Diane standing in the hallway outside her room. Her shirt was torn at the collar, her hair was wild, and mascara ran down her face in dark streaks. She was sobbing. Huge gasping sobs that echoed through the house. When she saw me, she screamed, "How could you do this to me?" I stood there, frozen, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. Diane started yelling that I had come into her room in the middle of the night, that I had tried to force myself on her, that she barely got away. I could not speak. This was not happening. This could not be happening. I managed to say it was not true, that she was lying, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. Diane pulled out her phone and threatened to call the police. She said she would tell them everything, that they would believe her. I tried to explain what had actually happened, tried to make her stop, but she just kept crying and yelling. And then I heard the front door open. Jessica was home. Jessica walked in and took in the scene. Diane with her torn shirt and ruined makeup, me standing there looking guilty as hell even though I had done nothing wrong. Diane ran to Jessica and collapsed into her arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Through her tears, Diane told Jessica her version. That I had come into her room around 3 in the morning. That I had tried to touch her to force her. That she had fought me off and locked her door. That she had been too scared to come out until she heard me leave. Jessica held her friend and looked at me over Diane's shoulder. I saw doubt in her eyes. Actual doubt. My wife of 10 years was looking at me like I might be capable of this. I started explaining, words tumbling out fast and desperate. I told her about last night, about Diane trying to kiss me, about how this was clearly retaliation for me rejecting her. Diane just cried harder and said I was lying to save myself. Jessica asked me the question that broke my heart. Why would she lie? I had no answer that made sense in that moment. I just stood there, feeling like the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. Jessica's voice was cold when she spoke again. She said she needed time to think, to process everything. She asked me to stay at my brother's house for a few days. I could not believe what I was hearing. She was choosing to believe Diane over me. After everything we had built, after 10 years of marriage, she was kicking me out of my own home based on a lie. I tried to argue, tried to make her see reason, but Jessica just kept repeating that she needed space. Finally, she said words I will never forget. Just go, Cullen. I packed a bag, my hands shaking so hard. I could barely zip it closed. I walked out of my house not knowing if I would ever be welcomed back. My brother Greg lived about 20 minutes away, in a condo that always smelled faintly of the Chinese food he ordered too often. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without questions. I told him everything, while sitting on his couch staring at my hands. Greg knew me better than anyone, except Jessica. We had been close our whole lives, and he did not hesitate for a second. He said he believed me completely. That Diane's story did not make sense. That Jessica would come around once she calmed down. I wanted to believe him, but 3 days passed and Jessica would not answer my calls. Finally, she sent a text that felt like a knife to the chest. Need more time. Staying with Diane at a hotel. She was not just believing Diane. She was actively supporting her. I could not eat, could not sleep. I kept replaying everything in my mind, trying to figure out where I went wrong, how I could have prevented this nightmare. Greg found me at 2 in the morning, sitting in the dark, and he sat down next to me. He said I needed to fight back to find proof. And that is when I remembered we had security cameras. Nothing fancy, just a doorbell camera at the front, and one covering the backyard that we installed after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood last year. They did not record inside the house, but maybe they caught something. I waited until the next afternoon when I knew Jessica and Diane would be out. I drove to my house, my hands sweating on the steering wheel, half expecting to find the locks changed. But my key still worked. I went straight to the computer where the camera footage stored and started scrolling through that night. The indoor cameras did not help. We had never installed any, because Jessica always said it felt invasive. But the backyard camera caught something interesting. At 11:47 that night, after I had rejected her, Diane went outside. She stood on our back patio, with her phone pressed to her ear, and even in the grainy footage, I could see she was smiling. Not crying. Not traumatized. Smiling. She talked for nearly 15 minutes, laughing at one point, her body language completely relaxed. This was not proof of innocence exactly, but it showed Diane was not some broken victim hiding in her room after I supposedly attacked her. But I needed something stronger. Something undeniable. Then I remembered my podcast microphone. I had started a small tech podcast a few months back that never really took off, but I kept the equipment set up in my office. The microphone was connected to recording software that I sometimes left running because I would get ideas at random times and wanted to capture them. I always meant to turn it off when I was not using it, but I was terrible about it. My heart pounding, I checked the audio files from that Tuesday night. And there it was, an hour and 23 minutes of audio, time-stamped and dated. I put on headphones and listened, my chest getting tighter with every second. Diane's voice clear as day. I want you, Cullen. My voice firm. No, Diane. This is not right. You need to stop. Sounds of movement of struggle. My voice again louder. Get off me. You need to leave tomorrow. Then Diane, her voice dropping low and cold. You will regret this. I saved that file in 3 different places. This was it. Undeniable proof. I could barely breathe as I called Jessica. She did not answer. I called again. And again. Finally, she picked up her voice, annoyed. I told her I had proof that I needed to meet with her and Diane. She tried to brush me off, but I did not back down. I said if she had any respect for our marriage, she would give me 1 hour. Reluctantly, she agreed. We met at a coffee shop downtown the next morning, neutral territory. Jessica and Diane arrived together, and seeing them side by side made my stomach turn. Diane still had that victim look on her face, eyes downcast, shoulders hunched. Jessica sat protectively close to her. I did not waste time on pleasantries. I pulled out my phone, connected it to a small Bluetooth speaker I had brought, and hit play. The audio quality was not perfect, but it was clear enough. Diane's voice admitting she wanted me. My voice rejecting her. The struggle. Her threat. I watched Diane's face drain of color. She started to speak, but I kept the audio playing. When it finished, the silence in that coffee shop was deafening. Other customers were staring, but I did not care. Diane recovered quickly. I had to give her that. She said I had edited the file, that it was fake, that I was trying to manipulate everyone. So I showed her the metadata, the timestamp, the file properties that proved it had not been tampered with. I pulled up the backyard camera footage on my phone and showed how she was laughing on the phone less than an hour after I supposedly attacked her. Diane could not explain it away. Her face went from pale to red, her hands started shaking. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loud against the floor. She looked at both of us and said, "You both deserve each other," then walked out. I turned to Jessica, expecting relief, expecting an apology, expecting her to fall apart with guilt. She was crying, her hands trembling as she reached for mine. She said she was sorry, that she should have believed me, that she did not know what she was thinking. I felt something loosen in my chest. This was it. We could start to rebuild. It would take time, but we could fix this. Then Jessica said something that stopped my heart. But Diane is going through so much. I need to talk to her, help her understand why she did this. I stared at her. You want to help her? Jessica nodded, tears still flowing. She is my best friend, Cullen. She is clearly hurting. I think I should take her on that trip we had planned, just the 2 of us, to help her heal. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. The trip. They had planned some weekend getaway to a spa resort before all this happened. And Jessica wanted to go through with it. To comfort the woman who had just tried to destroy my life. I said slowly, carefully. You want to take a vacation with the person who falsely accused me, who tried to ruin me. Jessica looked frustrated, like I was not getting it. It is not that simple. She clearly has issues. She needs support. I stood up. People were definitely staring now, but I was beyond caring. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and I did not recognize the person sitting there. I told Jessica clearly, with no room for misinterpretation, if you go on that trip with Diane, do not bother coming back. She looked shocked, like I had slapped her. You are giving me an ultimatum. I shook my head. No. I am telling you what I will not tolerate. She tried to destroy me, destroy us. And you want to comfort her. You want to take her on a spa weekend while I am supposed to, just get over being falsely accused. Jessica's voice rose. It is not that simple. She is broken inside. She needs help. And I needed you to believe me, I said, my voice cracking despite my best efforts to stay calm. But you chose her. From the moment she made her accusation, you chose her. I walked out of that coffee shop and drove straight to a lawyer's office. I had looked up divorce attorneys during those sleepless nights at Greg's place just in case. I never really thought I would need one, but here I was. The lawyer, a woman named Patricia, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, listened to my story. I played her the audio file. She made notes, asked questions, and told me I had a strong case. She also advised me to keep all evidence related to Diane's accusation in case she tried to pursue legal action. I had not even thought of that. My hands went cold at the idea that this nightmare might not be over. 2 days later, Jessica came home. I was there packing more of my things when she walked in. She looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed. She said she had canceled the trip with Diane, that she'd told Diane they needed distance. I waited for the relief to come, but it did not. Jessica said she wanted to work on our marriage, that we could get through this. But then she added Diane really does need professional help, though. I connected her with a therapist. Even then, even after everything, Jessica was still worried about Diane. I felt nothing but coldness spreading through my chest. I pulled out the divorce papers Patricia had drawn up and set them on our kitchen counter. Jessica stared at them like they were written in a foreign language. "What is this? You made your choice when you did not believe me," I said quietly. "The moment you doubted me after 10 years of marriage was the moment you chose her over us." She started crying, begging me to reconsider, to give her another chance. She said everyone makes mistakes, that she was confused and scared, and did not know what to think. But I kept seeing her face from that morning, the doubt in her eyes when she looked at me. I kept hearing her say she needed to help Diane heal. Trust once broken like that does not just come back. And respect matters even more than trust. Jessica had shown me that when it mattered most, our 10 years together counted for less than her friendship with someone who tried to destroy me. I moved in with Greg officially. The divorce took 6 months to finalize. It was not ugly, not really. We divided our assets fairly. She kept the house because her teaching job was nearby, and I could afford a new place. We did not fight over money or possessions. There was just this heavy sadness hanging over everything. The first few months were brutal. I felt like I had lost everything that mattered. I would wake up reaching for someone who was not there anymore. I would start to text Jessica about something funny I saw, then remember. The grief was physical, a weight on my chest that made it hard to breathe sometimes. But slowly, things started to shift. I threw myself into work and earned a promotion to senior engineer. I started going to the gym at 5 in the morning, working out until my muscles screamed and my mind went quiet. I reconnected with friends I had let drift away over the years. Greg took me to a local hiking club meeting, and I discovered I loved it. There was something healing about being in the mountains, about pushing my body up trails while my mind worked through everything. I met people who did not know my story, who just knew me as Cullen, the guy who always brought good snacks on hikes and could fix anyone's technical problems. I built a life that was different from what I had planned, but it was mine. It was honest. It was free from the weight of being doubted by the one person who should have had my back. A year after the divorce was final, Jessica reached out. She sent a long email saying she had cut off contact with Diane, that she realized how wrong she had been, that she wanted to try again. I read it twice, then deleted it. Some doors once closed should stay that way. I learned something through all of this. I learned that love is not enough. You also need trust. And not just baseline trust, but the kind that holds firm when everything is falling apart. You need someone who will stand beside you when it would be easier to step away. You need someone who values truth more than comfort. Jessica chose comfort. She chose the easier path of believing her friend over investigating the facts. She chose to prioritize Diane's feelings over my devastation. And even after the truth came out, she wanted to keep that friendship alive, to nurture it while our marriage bled out. I do not hate her for it. Honestly, I do not feel much of anything for her anymore. I feel sad. Sometimes sad for what we had and what we could have been. But mostly I feel grateful. Grateful that I learned who she really was before wasting more years. Grateful that I found the strength to walk away. Grateful that I loved myself enough to demand better. My life now is simpler in some ways, more complicated in others. I have a small apartment with a view of the mountains. I have friends who show up when I need them. I have work that challenges me. I have hobbies that bring me joy. I have peace. And someday, when I am ready, I will let someone new into my life. But this time, I will know what to look for. This time, I will know that pretty words and shared history mean nothing without unwavering loyalty. Looking back, I realize that sometimes the worst betrayals come not from strangers, but from those we love most. And sometimes the greatest act of self-love is knowing when to walk away. So, let me ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved because they did not stand up for you when it mattered? How did you find the strength to rebuild? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you at all, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope wherever you are in your journey, you find people who choose you the way you deserve to be chosen. Take care of yourselves out there.